The European Historic Thermal Towns Association is a member organization of about 51 members in 18 European countries, plus 2 international partners. And we are actually certified as a cultural route of the Council of Europe since 2010. So the mission of our association is to protect and promote the thermal tourism and the thermal heritage in Europe.
Okay.
So I just repeat my answer?
Yes, please. Please.
Okay. So
it's also a cultural practice for Europe. Can you elaborate, please, a little bit on this historic and cultural dimension?
Yes. So actually, people have traveled to the sources and the springs in Europe for hundreds of years to seek health and well-being. And I think we all are very familiar with the fact that balneotherapy was a common practice in ancient Greece. The Romans spread the architecture and the use of their baths in their empire, in the Roman Empire. And we also have roots and traces linked to the Ottoman era. So many of our European thermal towns have their roots, for example, in a Roman settlement, which developed into a village or a town later. If you speak about the cultural dimension and the historic value, of course, over the time, and especially in the 18th to 20th century in Central Europe, the spa towns were of significant importance for the society and the shaping of European culture. So many assets that we find today, the grand buildings, for example, the importance of parks and the landscape and the architecture was developed in this time. And it is really the importance of all these places built around this valuable water that was then a place of well-being and health and culture until today. So we probably will speak about this a bit more later, but that's what actually we see today as a very valuable asset throughout Europe. Yes, what I just described, so probably similar, is really the fact that these towns and destinations developed after a very early settlement, for example, from the Romans and the very early use of the springs. So this is something that you find in a small village in Portugal or in Spain, as well as in Greece, that in early days, the water was used. So this phenomenon is really common, and that is what is also uniting us. What I also described is that in the bigger, more important places, what developed there as an infrastructure actually to welcome guests is also uniting. We call it today the thermal heritage. For example, if you imagine there is a spa town and they have in common the grand parks, the casinos, because spa towns were actually developed and built to welcome guests and to entertain these guests. So many of the theaters, for example, were built for the guests, or train stations. So this is something that is uniting in many ways. And in our network, or among our spa towns, we also have the Great Spa Towns of Europe as a World Heritage Site, 11 of those towns. And they really have this, what is connecting and standing for them and uniting them, just to mention quickly. Certainly, the difference is, and I just said, is the size and the dimension, how thermal tourism has developed. There are small villages, towns, that are used to cater for the locals, that had some certain visitors, but did not develop into huge and large tourist destinations. While on the other side, for example, in France, in Czechia, in Germany, there are these big names that you know, that we all are common, that have developed into the big towns with a lot of tourism. Just to name, for example, Baden-Baden or Karlovy Vary or Vichy in France. So that is something that is for sure different and that developed differently. And also how the towns treat the tourism today, because also here we have a difference. Some of them are very much specialized in medical tourism, in medical treatment, and are not much open, for example, for wellness tourism, while others are more into wellness and well-being tourism and not so much for medical treatments. So yeah, there are both ways to look at it. Absolutely, and the short answer is it's absolutely on the rise, and it's a clear yes. Maybe just to share some facts with you that we actually just gathered last month in our Thermal Tourism Congress in Budapest. So it's really a fact that more and more travelers are seeking more wellness, that especially the younger generation, they want to be more active, they want to immerse more in experiences. And the surprising fact is really that the age group 18 to 44, for example, is willing to spend much more on wellness than other older age groups. And that was just now a few weeks ago confirmed by the European Travel Commission in their latest report. So we see that, for example, 55% of travelers are now searching for less popular destinations, which is a great chance for our spa towns. They seek nature and outdoor activities, and they are interested in heritage and culture and in wellness and relaxation. For example, this is with about 10%. So, you know, what our destinations bring, this combination of heritage and culture and well-being and health, is really what the majority actually is looking for. And to give you some other data that I have now just taken from the report of TripAdvisor, is that TripAdvisor.com has observed a development and a plus of 154% of bookings of thermal spas in the last year and months. And they estimate that the impressive number of wellness tourism market is actually at the moment $1 trillion. And it's expected that the wellness tourism market will double, so to $2 trillion by 2030. And in that, they estimate that the thermal tourism market last year in 2024 was a share of $58 billion, and that actually is even expected to triple in the next 5 years. So just to give you some hard facts that are definitely confirming that we are in a very, very good position with a great potential. You know, so to answer this question, country by country really is necessary. So I just try to give you 1-2 examples, because we really have the challenge that in Europe we have different rules, different legal frames for this. And first of all, I think the thermal tourism, you know, describes all that comes along with, so let's say that what we also classically call maybe a cure in a spa town, but also the well-being. So first of all, that makes it very, very difficult to come out with, let's say, the concrete number of days. But what I can tell you is, now, as you mentioned, Germany, for an example, is that the classic cure is for a certain time. So in Germany, it's 21 days based on a subscription by a doctor and by the acceptance of health insurance, which means the health insurance pays those 3 weeks of a cure. And that cure is theoretically, the patient can choose, what is actually the best location, depending on the diagnosis and the need for treatment. And sometimes it's in a thermal town, but sometimes not. So also this is not necessarily connected, which makes it also difficult to answer this. We have other countries like in France, where you also have this amount of days that is fixed, but not each country. So it's really a very difficult question. And we do not, regrettably, there is no, let's say, a same rule and the same regulation in Europe. And also, not every time people can choose where they have to go. So yeah, that's the condition if you want to have a little bit of an insight. Also different, and actually it's a choice. They sell, of course, treatments only or packages that are combining this. But I have to say, and this is also a big recommendation, that more and more follow the demand of the combination of experiences. And this is something that we also clearly receive from a European level, the engagement the encouragement to combine experiences and create packages for the consumers, because this is something that is definitely a trend and what is more in the need of the guests, which means, for example, already we have this great combination in our spa towns. I said it before, the culture aspect and the health aspect. So there is always a discovery component that can be added to the health experience, to the wellness. Clearly, again, in our DNA of our spa towns is, for example, the gastronomy. We have such a great gastronomy in many of the places. There are traditional foods, experiences that can be combined. Outdoor activities, biking, hiking, cycling, this whole landscape that is around our spa towns is actually great for this. And as I mentioned before, the cultural life is so great. There are often events and festivals that make it such an added value for the consumer to his experience of thermal tourism. So I really have to encourage, and we're encouraging our members and the destinations to go more in this direction, because that is the winning combination that is out there. It's not much effort, but they really need to work for this. And we have great examples in our network that are already doing this in a very great way. They have a special role that is clear because of their natural asset, the water. I think, with this natural remedy, by history, they had to learn to protect it, and they had to learn to treat it in a sustainable way. So I would say the region and the area around it is also connected to this sensitive issue in a very special way. This safeguarding and this protection has led to the challenge to, for example, find good ways now in climate change to adapt to it. And usually, because it's the municipality now talking on a political level, but certainly our president as a mayor can even add to that. On a political level, they need to adapt, and they need to find ways to be sustainable, which is linked to regional politics in many cases. And also the fact, and now I'm not talking about, let's say, the ecological sustainability, but also the social sustainability. Spa towns have a special responsibility for their citizens, because they are actually living in a very special place. And I think as people are, or should more and more really identify again with the place they live in, you cannot only limit this to the town itself, but it can also be a very good collaboration with the region or the area around. So I hope that answers a bit your question. My vision and my wish is, is together, because first of all, I really hope and wish that the potential of thermal tourism, this amazing potential of those towns, and be they small and big, is much more recognized. Of course, from the outside, from the consumers, from potential tourists, but especially on a political level. Because I think, it must be understood that these special places not only have a big potential, they also need a special care, which means the specific challenges they have to protect the heritage and to take care of the waters, and to answer this question about the potential of tourism is often not seen in the big dimension on the political level. And I'm talking about regional, but also national and European level. So this is my big wish, that the significance of our spa towns on all various levels is more recognized and more supported. And along with this goes my wish that in the strategies, in the communication strategies of our national tourist boards and national tourist offices, the spa towns will in the future have a more visible and more recognized place. And ideally, politics and national tourist board strategies go hand in hand. So that is my big wish.
So Italy possesses a rich thermal tradition that has its roots in Roman antiquity, but even before the Roman Empire, as in the case of Monte Grotto Terme, and has evolved to become a country with some of the most renowned thermal destinations in the world. This is certainly due to a great geological heritage and a very large quantity of thermal waters that differ from each other. Italy benefits from particular favorable geology with numerous thermal springs distributed basically through the territory. Italian thermal waters present very different chemical composition: sulfurous, bicarbonate, salso-bromo-iodic. Our flow have 87 degrees in Monte Grotto, salso-bromo-iodic water, radioactive and carbonic. And this variety allows treating a wide range of pathologies, from respiratory to dermatological, rheumatic, and circulatory condition. As I said previously, Italian thermal culture has very ancient origins. The Romans were the first to develop a true thermal system, with the famous thermal that represented centers of socialization and wellness. This tradition has been maintained through the centuries in alternating phases, enriched with modern scientific knowledge while preserving the holistic approach to wellness. Starting from the 20th century, various Italian thermal destinations have been able to develop models that combine the therapeutic aspects with the tourist ones. Currently, various Italian thermal destinations offer both medical treatments recognized by the national health system and wellness and beauty path, creating a complete experience that attracts different types of visitors. Many Italian thermal locations are immersed in a context of extraordinary natural and architectural beauty, from the historic thermal bath of Monte Catini, for example, to the modern structures in Alto Adige. Italy offers a thermal experience that is enriched by the artistic and landscape heritage of the territory. It must also be said that the Italian thermal sector is distinguished by continuous scientific research and technological innovation. A lot of thermal centers collaborate with the universities and research institutes to study the therapeutic properties of waters and develop new treatments protocols. In some cases, such in the Uganian thermal basin, there are study centers like our Pietro D'Abano Thermal Study Center that live and produce knowledge basically thanks to the investments of the thermal entrepreneurs. Thermal Italy is not limited to the traditional treatments, but has been able to diversify the offer, including modern spas, wellness centers, CNAP paths, and medical wellness programs that are responding to the needs of an increasingly broad and international public with different sensibilities. These elements combine to create a unique Italian thermal identity, which represent a perfect balance between tradition and innovation, earth and pleasure, culture and nature. The Italian nation, the Italian state pays subsidies for thermal treatments through the National Health Service, effectively considering users as patients who need medical care. Thermal treatments are therefore contracted with the National Health System. All Italian citizens have the right once a year to a cycle of thermal treatments lasting a maximum of 12 days, covered by the National Health Service. They access these treatments, a medical prescription is required, written on a regional prescription posted by one's family doctor, freely choosing pediatrician or a specialist. Non-exempt patients pay a ticket of €55 for entire treatment cycle, 12 thermal mud baths, 12 inhalation or insufflation, while certain categories benefit from reduction or exemptions. Some protected categories, war invalids, service invalids, blind, deaf, mute, civil invalids with disability exceeded 2/3 can benefit from second cycle for treat disabling pathologies. Regarding the spending trends, the general picture of the Italian healthcare shows some critical issues. In 2023, Italy for public healthcare spending per capita ranks only sixth among the 27 European countries in the OECD area. And the trend of public healthcare spending per capita 2023 returns a merciless picture. Italy has always been last among the G7 countries. The system nevertheless maintains coverage for thermal treatments as a part of the essential levels of care, LEA. Thermal services covered by the National Health System are listed in Annex 9 of LEA, is a special law of 2017. In parallel, there are also additional subsidies through INPS. Tender announcements have been published for the assignment of contribution for the thermal treatments reserved for subscribers in the new mutuality fund ex-IPOST, which represent complementary support for specific categories of workers. In summary, the state continues to finance thermal treatments as healthcare service, but in the context of a national health system that faces challenges of general underfunding compared to the other European standards. Montegrotto is in the biggest touristic destination, that name is Terme and Colli Euganei. This touristic destination has almost 100 thermal hotel structures, establishment, to which next year, for the first 5-star thermal camping in Europe, will be added, where each beach will have its own reserved service complete with underfloor heating. As municipality administration, aware that tourism here is generated entirely by private economic initiatives, basically a unique case in Italy, we try to adopt and pursue all those actions that favor investments in the territory, not public investments, private investments. We use the tourist tax also to create urban regeneration that marry and coordinated with the tourist vocation of the territory. Among other things, an important last perspectives we are pursuing is working alongside a business network, is an innovative proposal to create structures dedicated to thermal treatments for horses, reconnecting to a historical tradition of our territory. Our vision is to create a true spa for horses, combining the millenary tradition of the Euganean thermal baths with the modern needs of equestrian tourism, for example. With EHTTA, the Association of European Historic Town, we are investing to strengthen interaction between historic thermal cities to develop integrated experiential path, which can make our thermal cities a single large network capable of healthy lobbying at the European Union level, especially in Brussels. The city of Montegrotto Terme participates in the Green Space project, improving public policies for thermal cities in Europe in the face of climate change challenges. The Montegrotto 2050 project is underway to redesign the urban heart with the objective of giving Montegrotto Terme increasingly more order, harmony, and coherence with the thermal tourist vocation through a concerted process with private parties. As mayor, I'm also pushing to revise the regional law concerning the plan of the use of thermal resource, PURT, 40 years old, to also open the energy use of the thermal resource in collaboration with the Veneto region and the University of Padua. Energy use that will start in the coming month using the heat from waste thermal waters from some hotels to 8 public buildings, and reduce carbon dioxide emission. There is also a very structured plan for valorizing the cultural and archaeological thermal heritage that distinguishes Montegrotto Terme. After the inauguration of the fantastic Museum of Ancient Thermalism and Territory, we are working alongside with the Sovrintendenza to valorize and invest in the Roman-era archaeological areas that unequivocally testify our ancestral connection with the Thermal's Roman baths. Also, at the level of municipal regulation, we are creating all the conditions to incentivize investments in the territory to have impacts in terms of increased tourist presence, increased employment, and wealth spillover as capillary as possible on the territory and community. Today, in July of 2025, there are about 160 million euros of investments underway in regeneration of disused thermal structures and in the creation of the 5-star thermal camping. So we have some statistics that say that the typical thermal tourist has a fairly high age, although in recent years a rejuvenation of the clientele is being recorded. In 2014, the share of elder people dropped to 47%, while that of adults aged 18 to 64 rose to 43%, and that of children and young people up to 17 years to 10%. The thermal guests has a medium or medium height income, which reflects the nature of service that requires a certain economic availability. As macro data for thermal vacation in Italy, tourists spend on average of 100 euros for the trip and about 76 euros for the accommodation per person. Figures that in our city are much higher, these statistics. Those who use thermal services, the so-called spagors, I curanti, make a long stay, demonstrate high loyalty both to the thermal bath and the accommodation facilities, and prefer half-board or full-board service. They are composed of Italian guests representing over 60% of arrivals, and stays travel mainly in couples, and women represent the majority. Although specific data on the educational level did not emerge from the research, the medium height socioeconomic profile generally suggests an educational level above average. Among the motivations that drive travelers to choose a thermal destination stand out the desire for relaxation, the possibility to dedicating oneself to wellness and body care, enjoying the natural beauties of the place and the proximity of the city of origin. Montegrotto Thermal Bath, together with Abano and with Battaglia Terme and Galzignano Terme, constitute one of the main thermal pools in Italy and attract guests seeking a quality wellness experience with economic availability to afford it, and the tendency to return when the experiences has been satisfactory. It must be said, however, that we need to work hard on the theme of average stay scene, since it has been in sharp decline for at least 20 years. We went from 12-14 days in the 70s and 80s to an average stay of 3.2 nights, which is truly alarming data, really low, that could substantially distort the classic thermal offer. In my opinion, having a global tourist destination product is generally very advantageous for marketing thermal services for several strategic reasons. Thermal tourism has a consolidated international market with the clients willing to travel for quality wellness and experiences. A global strategy allows diversifying origin markets, reducing dependence on domestic tourism, and creating more stable flows through the year. Creating an international recognizable brand helps position to the thermal destination in a competitive market. This includes developing uniform quality standards, international certifications, and coherent communication that valorizes the territory's specificities. However, the globalization of the product must be balanced with the local authenticity. Thermal tourists often seek unique experiences linked to the territory, culture, and local tradition. The challenge is therefore to create a product that is both accessible to an international public and rooted in identity of the place. A global strategy requires significant investments in digital marketing, presence of international distribution channels, staff training in foreign languages, and adaptation of structures to the international standards. For Veneto thermal baths, Veneto region thermal baths, for example, this could mean valorizing both the excellence of thermal waters and the culture and landscape attractiveness of the region, creating integrated packages that combine wellness and experiential tourism. I think of the vast range of tourist products offered by the Euganeian Hills Natural Park, in which Montegrotto is located: religious, food, wine, sport, 3 golf clubs, bike, trekking, cultural paths. The integration of new tourist products helps regenerate the thermal product as well, removing it from a state of tourist maturity that could be harmful. And in the Veneto region, with the Venice attractives, we have to create a thermal touristic product that is linked to the visibility of, for example, Venice or Verona.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. And of course, last but not least, the same question I posed to Mrs. Zagrodnik. What is your vision for the future of thermal tourism?
Bella domanda. Thermal tourism is going through a phase of very profound transformation that will lead it to reinvest itself for contemporary needs. I see several key directions for its future that depend, first of all, on the willingness of private investment, on the strategic proximity that distinguishes us, for example, Montegrotto with Venice, with Dolomiti, with the Palladio Villas, with a series of tourist pearls known through the world. Traditional thermal baths are evolving toward a complete wellness center that combine the benefits of thermal waters with the modern practices like mindfulness, yoga, Ayurvedic treatments, and integrative medicine. No longer just treatments for specific pathologies, but through preventive wellness path. And the use of digital technologies will allow creating increasingly personalized experiences, from preliminary diagnosis through apps to tailor-made therapeutic paths based on biometric data to augmented reality to enrich the thermal experience. We must never forget that thermal baths prevent certain pathologies as well as treat and soothe them once they appear. The future of thermal baths will inevitably be linked to sustainability, responsible use of water resources, renewable energy, district heating, eco-compatible architectures, and harmonious integration with the surrounding territory. I foresee an opening toward broader segments of the public with a diversified offer ranging from the premium treatments to accessible packages, making thermal wellness less elitist. Thermal baths will increasingly become a destination for complete experiences that combine relaxation, local culture, territorial gastronomy, and outdoor activities, creating an integrated touristic ecosystems and products. The key will be maintaining the authenticity and traditional benefits of the thermal water, innovating in the approach and experience offered. Parto io?
Okay,
Yes.
from my side, certainly, and it's a bit linked to our visions, that this understanding that we need to change, and the places and the thermal destinations in Greece, everywhere, they must shift from this picture that is still in the heads often, from curing the sick and the old to the prevention, and to these destinations, these places for prevention, and meeting the requirements of the young generation as well as the aging people, that this is really a question for health. Well-being is very important. We must leave the old traces of the health system supported ways of the classic cure, and we must open up from the classic medical treatments to the well-being and to the wellness, because this is where the money is. This is where the potential is to lead us to the future. And we need to really listen to the demand of the market in this way. And that definitely is the way to open up also to private investors and public-private partnerships, ideally, to find a solution.
Okay.
The
Mr.
question
Mortandello?
is very interesting question, because in my opinion, politicians should not treat thermal spots, thermal cities as just any generic touristic destination, any touristic city. But they must find the resources, money and funding to restart with private investments and guarantee the access to public health through the use of thermal treatments. And for example, it's important to have some simple but important laws about the regeneration of urbanistic context. So with this action, I think that for the thermal system that has a millenary ancient story, we can give other millennial future, but the politicians have to decide.